I never imagined that a quiet evening could be the start of something that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. The day had started innocently enough, with laughter, with music, and the warmth of family as we celebrated Aunt Linda's retirement. She had worked her whole life and was finally going to rest, travel, enjoy her garden. That kind of peace felt far away from my own reality, but for that night I tried to let the joy of it soak in. By the time I got home, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and a peaceful dusk had settled over the neighborhood. But something about the silence inside our house felt off, too quiet. As I opened the front door, I remember hearing the gentle click of the lock behind me and feeling, for some reason, that it sounded final. Odd, right? But that's how these things start, not with a bang but a whisper. Marcus, my husband of 3 years, was lying on the couch, his face bathed in the cold blue light of his phone screen. "Hey, Penelope," he mumbled, his eyes never leaving whatever he was scrolling through. I tried to smile, even though my mind was elsewhere. I mumbled something back and walked straight to the bedroom. I had only one thing on my mind, the watch, my father's watch. It wasn't just any watch. It was a vintage Omega Seamaster, gold with a dark leather strap, worn from the years. My father had given it to me on my 21st birthday. He wasn't rich. In fact, he had worked extra shifts at the factory, skipped vacations, and saved for years to buy it. He told me it was to remind me that no matter where life took me, time was mine to hold. That watch was worth over $12,000, but honestly, if someone had offered me $1 million, I wouldn't have taken it. Because when I wore it, I felt like he was right there with me. His steady hand, his kind voice, his belief in me. I opened the drawer where I always kept it. My breath caught. It was gone. Just gone. My chest tightened. My hands were already shaking as I called out, "Marcus?" He appeared in the doorway a second later, his expression casual, like I had just asked where the remote was. "What's up?" he asked, finally looking up from his phone. "The watch, my dad's watch, it's missing." Marcus furrowed his brows. "Are you sure? Maybe you put it somewhere else?" "No," I said, my voice rising. "I always keep it in the same place. It's not here. It's been stolen." I was shaking by then, a mess of panic and confusion. Marcus looked at me like I was overreacting, like maybe I was just emotional. But then he said something that chilled me. "There's no need to call the police, Penelope. It's still here. It has to be." I stopped cold. "What do you mean it has to be? How can you be so sure?" He shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "I don't know. Don't worry. It'll turn up." And that's when something dark crept into the back of my mind. Clara. Clara, his mother. The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. "You think your mom took it, don't you?" Marcus stiffened. "Don't start that, Penelope." "I'm not starting anything. But you know she's always had a weird obsession with that watch. She used to ask to try it on, remember? She even once joked about how it should have gone to you instead of me. She loved reminding me I wasn't really one of the family." Marcus's face hardened. "She would never steal from you, from us." But I couldn't listen anymore. My heart was pounding, and I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I didn't care if I sounded crazy. I didn't care if I seemed emotional. That watch was all I had left of my father. "I'm calling the police," I said, grabbing my phone. "Don't," Marcus snapped, stepping closer. But I already had the phone to my ear. I filed the report with trembling hands, my voice barely holding steady as I gave them the details. The officer said someone would be over within the hour. When I hung up, Marcus just stood there looking at me like I was a stranger. "I can't believe you just did that." And that's when I knew. The first crack had appeared. Not in the glass of the watch, but in the foundation of my marriage. The police came and went, polite but skeptical. They asked questions, wrote things down, and promised to follow up. But I could already tell Marcus was furious with me, and the tension between us stretched like piano wire ready to snap. Later that night, as he sulked on the couch, I sat alone on our bed. I looked around at our bedroom, our home, and suddenly felt like a guest, an outsider in my own life. I kept asking myself, how did it come to this? Over the next few days, things got worse. The silences were heavier, the distance greater. I'd walk into the room and Marcus would go quiet. He wouldn't meet my eyes. We slept back to back. We barely spoke. And then, as if on cue, Clara started showing up again. Friday evening, I heard her familiar chirpy voice before I even opened the door. "Penelope, darling, I brought your favorite lemon pound cake." She swept into the kitchen like a queen returning to her castle, placing the cake on the counter like it was a gift from the gods. I managed a strained smile. "Thanks, Clara, that's thoughtful." Clara floated around the kitchen, humming a tune, opening drawers like she owned the place, rearranging spices like it was her mission from heaven. Every second she breathed in my house felt like an attack. Marcus, of course, just stood there watching her with admiration. "She's just trying to help, Penelope. Don't be so uptight," he whispered, placing a hand on my shoulder. I shrugged him off. "She's treating our home like it's hers." He didn't answer. Later, she looked at me and said, "Why don't you set the table, dear? I'll finish up here." Set the table? In my own home? I felt like I'd been slapped, but I held it in. I always did. Dinner that night was torture. Clara ran the conversation like it was a show, and she was the star. She insulted me with a smile, slipping in barbs that Marcus didn't even seem to notice. "Penelope, sweetheart, have you tried that new wrinkle cream I mentioned? It works wonders around the eyes." I smiled tightly, my fists clenched under the table. And then she crossed the line. "Marcus, darling, you really should consider investing in real estate. Penelope's little job is cute, but let's be honest, it won't carry you far." I snapped. "With all due respect, Clara, our finances are none of your concern." Dead silence. Clara's eyes narrowed. "Well, I'm just looking out for my son. We can't all come from money, can we?" The sting of that sentence hit deep. She always made sure to remind me I wasn't born into comfort. But what she didn't know, what none of them seemed to care about, was that everything I had earned, with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. That night, something inside me cracked wide open. I excused myself with a fake headache, went upstairs, and cried like I hadn't in years. That woman had invaded my marriage, stolen my father's watch, and twisted my husband around her perfectly manicured finger. But I wasn't going to be the quiet, obedient wife anymore. No, Clara had taken too much from me, and now it was time for her to pay. The following week simmered with a quiet fury. On the surface, I was calm, smiling, folding laundry, answering emails. But inside, I was a firestorm. Each minute that passed fed the flames. I kept replaying the conversation with Clara, the way she dismissed me like I was a nobody in my own home, like her presence was a favor rather than a constant violation. And Marcus? He just went along with it all, pretending everything was fine. Maybe he truly didn't see it, or maybe he didn't want to. Either way, I was alone in this, completely and utterly alone. Every day, I waited for the perfect opportunity. I knew Clara. I knew her routines. She always showed up unannounced. She loved the power it gave her, to catch me off guard, to remind me I had no control. And sure enough, on Saturday morning, she arrived as if summoned by the rising sun. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when I heard the doorbell. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I already knew. Marcus had gone out to run errands, which left just the two of us. A scenario Clara seemed to enjoy far too much. When I opened the door, there she was, smiling, smug, like a cat who'd just finished licking the cream. "Penelope, dear, I brought some of that organic honey you like." I stepped aside silent, and that's when I saw it. On her wrist, the watch. My father's watch. The gold band glinted in the morning sun, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. "That's my watch," I said, my voice quiet but firm. Clara glanced at it, then back at me. "Oh, this old thing? I found it lying around the guest room. Thought it might suit me." "You had no right to take it. It's mine." She laughed, an ugly, harsh sound. "Finders, keepers, dear. Besides, it looks better on me, don't you think?" The audacity, the cruelty, it was breathtaking. I could have screamed. I could have snatched it off her wrist, but I didn't. Because this wasn't just about a watch anymore. This was about something much bigger. Respect, boundaries, justice. "You need to give it back," I said, my voice like ice. Clara waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Queen Penelope. It's just a watch." "Just a watch." That sentence echoed through me. That watch was the last thing my father ever gave me before he passed. It was his pride, his sacrifice, his love wrapped in polished gold and ticking gears. And she was treating it like a piece of costume jewelry. "You don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "That watch means everything to me." Clara just smirked. "Well, now it means a lot to me, too, so I guess I'll be keeping it." I stared at her, stunned. There was no remorse, no guilt, just pure, calculated cruelty. I could feel my hands trembling, but I held them at my sides. "Fine," I said softly, "as keep it. But remember, Clara, every action has consequences." She tilted her head, mocking. "Oh, Penelope, always the drama. Don't worry, I'll take excellent care of your precious little trinket." And with that, she sauntered into the kitchen like she hadn't just declared war. That evening, Marcus came home, and I confronted him the moment he stepped through the door. "Your mother took the watch," I said. He blinked. "What?" "She's wearing it. She claimed she found it, said it looks better on her." He rubbed his face like he was trying to wake himself up from a dream. "Look, Mom can be eccentric sometimes, but I'm sure she didn't mean any harm." "Eccentric? Marcus, she stole from me. This isn't some harmless quirk, it's theft." "I'll talk to her." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Talk to her? That's your solution? She's treating our home like a playground, invading our space, stealing from me, disrespecting me to my face, and you're just going to have a little chat?" He didn't answer. That's when I knew. Marcus would never stand up to her. Not really. Not where it mattered. It would always be me against her, with him hiding in the middle, hoping we'd both just magically get along. But I was done hoping. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I wasn't crying, I was planning. If Marcus wouldn't defend me, I'd defend myself. If Clara thought she could just take what she wanted and walk away, she had another thing coming. She had underestimated me. Everyone had. The next few days passed in a blur of silence and simmering rage. I kept the house clean, made dinner, smiled when I had to. But inside, I was sharpening my weapons, gathering evidence, preparing for the next blow. And then, one Thursday evening, I discovered something that pushed me over the edge. Marcus was working late. I decided to clean the guest room, mostly to keep busy, to quiet my thoughts. But when I opened the closet, I froze. Inside, neatly arranged like they belonged there, were Clara's things. A suitcase, shoes, a robe, her perfume bottle. She had been staying here, in our home, in secret. I couldn't breathe. When Marcus came home, I was waiting in the hallway. "Why are your mother's things in the guest room?" I asked. He paused, and that pause told me everything. "She's been staying here," he finally said, "while we're at work. She said she wanted to help out around the house, make sure everything stays in order." "And you didn't think to tell me?" "She said not to bother you." "She said?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "So now she runs this house too?" "It's not like that, Penelope." "No? Then what is it like, Marcus? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your mother has taken over our lives, and you're letting her." He sighed. "I'll talk to her." Again with the talking. I turned away before I said something I'd regret. But in truth, I didn't regret much anymore. I had reached my limit. The next morning I waited. Sure enough, at 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Clara stood there, holding a bag of groceries like she was the lady of the manor. Penelope, I brought supplies." She swept past me into the kitchen, setting the bags down like she had a right to be there. "Clara," I said, my voice calm but firm, "we need to talk." She didn't even look up. "About what, dear?" "The watch. You staying here without my knowledge. This ends now." She laughed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Oh, Penelope, don't be silly. I'm just helping my son." "You're not helping. You're overstepping, and you're stealing." Clara's face darkened. "I'm not going anywhere. And the watch? It's mine now. Get used to it." Something snapped inside me. "This isn't the end of this, Clara. You may think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming." She narrowed her eyes, studying me like she was trying to figure out how much of a threat I really was. "Threats?" she scoffed. "You're no match for me." But she was wrong. I was more than a match. That night, after she left, I pulled out my laptop. I started documenting everything. Photos, notes, dates, times. Then I picked up the phone and made a call. Not to the police. To a lawyer. I explained everything. The theft, the emotional abuse, the invasion of my home. He listened quietly, and then said the words I had been craving. "You have a case." I leaned back in my chair, my hands trembling with adrenaline. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Clara had taken so much from me, but now I was taking it back. And I was just getting started. The days that followed moved with the slow, tense rhythm of a storm preparing to break. I went through the motions, making breakfast, answering emails, folding towels, but everything was different now. I wasn't the same woman Clara had dismissed as dramatic or harmless. No, I was focused, calm, and terrifyingly certain. I didn't tell Marcus about the lawyer. I didn't even hint at it. He didn't deserve to know, not yet. He had made his position clear through his inaction. His mother came first, always had, always would. But I'd had enough of being second. I knew I couldn't let Clara get away with this. It wasn't just about the watch anymore. It was about every time she'd barged into our home uninvited, every passive-aggressive comment, every smirk, every time she'd made me feel like a stranger in my own life. She thought I was weak. She thought wrong. On Saturday morning, Clara showed up again, right on schedule. Marcus was at the gym. That's how she liked it. Just the two of us. She got a thrill out of being alone with me, like it gave her the upper hand. She breezed in, humming, a shopping bag on one arm and my watch still on her wrist. "Penelope, darling, I brought almond flour this time. I figured we could bake something together." I stood in the middle of the kitchen, arms crossed. "No," I said. She looked up, startled. "No? I'm not baking with you. I'm not entertaining you. I'm not pretending anymore." She arched an eyebrow. "What's gotten into you?" What should have gotten into me a long time ago? Boundaries, self-respect. She set the bag down, clearly annoyed now. "Look, I don't know what this little tantrum is about, but it's not a tantrum, Clara, it's a reckoning." She stared at me amused. "Are you threatening me again?" I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "You're going to give me the watch back, and you're going to stop showing up here uninvited. If you don't, I promise you'll regret it." Clara burst into laughter like I'd just told a joke. "You poor thing. You really think you can scare me? I've dealt with stronger women than you, dear." I tilted my head. "And I've never had to destroy someone before. But there's a first time for everything." She stood there, lips parted, clearly unsure whether I was serious. I was. She left soon after that, rattled, and for once, she didn't slam the door behind her like a queen exiting her throne room. She walked away quietly, and that was the first win. That afternoon I gathered everything. Photos of the watch on her wrist, screenshots of texts between Marcus and her, messages she had foolishly left open on our shared tablet, gloating about how Penelope will never know it's gone. Statements from the lawyer, a copy of my original police report. Evidence, concrete, damning. That evening I waited until Marcus came home. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I simply showed him the folder I had put together. He flipped through it, his face growing paler with every page. What is all this?" he whispered. "It's the truth you refuse to see. She's my mother, Penelope, and I was your wife," I said softly. "But you made your choice." He sat down slowly, staring into space like he was trying to process it all. "You went to a lawyer?" he asked after a long pause. "Yes." "To sue her?" "No," I said, "to protect myself and to prepare for what's next." He looked up, panic flickering behind his eyes. "You don't mean divorce?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, we slept in separate rooms. Not because we were angry, but because something had broken that couldn't be repaired. And Clara? She had no idea the hammer was about to fall. I waited until the following Tuesday. I knew she'd be back. It was the day she usually dropped by to check the pantry, as if we were toddlers who couldn't shop for ourselves. Sure enough, at exactly 10:15 a.m., she arrived. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I opened it slowly, and behind me, 2 uniformed officers stepped into view. Clara's smile vanished. "Ma'am," one of the officers said, "we need to ask you some questions about a missing item. An Omega watch reported stolen by Mrs. Penelope Cruz. You're currently wearing it. May we come in?" Clara's face went through 3 shades of red, then pale white. "What? This is absurd. It was a gift." "No, it wasn't," I said, my voice even. "It was stolen, and I have proof." The officers stepped in. Clara tried to argue, but the more she spoke, the worse it got. She contradicted herself twice in the same sentence. Her voice shook, her hands trembled, and then they read her rights. The watch was removed from her wrist, bagged as evidence. And Clara? She was taken into custody. As she was led away, she turned back, eyes wide and wet. "You'll regret this, Penelope," she spat. But I didn't feel regret. I felt relief. And when Marcus came home that night, his face was a storm of confusion, betrayal, and heartbreak. "What happened?" he asked. "She got arrested," I said calmly, "for stealing the watch, for lying, for treating me like garbage in my own home." His mouth opened, then closed again. He looked smaller, older. You called the police on my mother?" "No," I said. "I called the police on a woman who broke the law. Your mother just happened to be that woman." He slumped into the chair, burying his face in his hands. "We could have handled this privately." I shook my head. "You had your chance to handle it. I begged you, I pleaded with you, but you chose silence. You chose her." Silence stretched between us like a canyon. Eventually, he looked up, eyes bloodshot. "I don't know if there's anything left of us." And for the first time in months, I was honest with him. Neither do I. The days that followed were chaos. The story got out. Neighbors whispered, friends tiptoed around me. And Marcus? He was unraveling. He lost focus at work. His boss pulled him aside. The rumors spread, and eventually he resigned. Quietly. Ashamed. One night he came to me, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom's talking about selling her house. Her savings are gone. She's facing charges, Penelope. Jail time." I nodded slowly. "She brought it on herself. She's still my mother, and I was your wife." He closed his eyes. "I can't abandon her," he said, "even if she was wrong." "I understand," I replied, "but I won't abandon myself either." He looked at me with something like respect, or maybe it was grief. Maybe both. Later that week, he came home with a decision. I think Mom and I are going to move. Start over. Somewhere new." I nodded. "And us?" I asked. He paused. "I don't know." And then he packed his things, quietly, methodically, no drama, no tears. Just the final movement of something that had been broken for a long time. When he left, the house felt hollow, like the wind had finally blown through and taken everything with it. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't lost. I was free. I stood in the doorway after the car disappeared down the street, and for the first time in years, I could hear the sound of my own breath. I walked back inside. I went to the drawer where the watch now sat, cleaned, polished, returned to its rightful place, and I smiled. The war was over, but the next chapter? That was mine to write. In the weeks following Marcus's departure, silence became my new companion. Not the kind that's empty or bitter, but the kind that whispers to you, invites reflection. The house that once echoed with tension now hummed with peace. I had grown so used to tiptoeing around someone else's feelings, dodging insults dressed as jokes, and trying to keep a marriage from crumbling, when all along I had been the only one fighting for it. And now I wasn't fighting anymore. I took it slow. I didn't rush into fixing the broken parts of my life. I let them be for a while. Sometimes we need to sit with the mess, to really understand what it cost us before we start sweeping it away. Clara's arrest made headlines in our little neighborhood. Of course, not front-page news or anything, but enough that people noticed. Enough that when I walked into the local coffee shop, people paused, unsure whether to say something or look away. I didn't care. I'd spent years caring too much about what others thought. I was done with that. The watch was back where it belonged, tucked away in the drawer by my bed. I didn't wear it right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to feel its weight on my wrist again. But something about it felt too tender, too sacred. So I left it there for a while, like a monument to everything I'd survived. One night, weeks after Marcus left, my phone rang. It was him. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the green circle. And then I answered. "Hi," I said, my voice calm. "Hi," he replied. His voice sounded smaller, softer, tinged with exhaustion. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't say anything right away. I should have stood by you," he continued. "I should have told her to stop. I should have taken your side. You were right about everything." "That means a lot," I said honestly, "but it's too late." There was a pause. I could hear him breathing. "I know. I just hope someday you'll forgive me." I sighed, closing my eyes. "I already have," I said, "but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. We both have to move on." After the call ended, I sat on the couch for a long time, not crying, not angry, just still. And in that stillness, I felt something shift. Closure. The chapter was closed, the ink dry. Now it was time to start a new one. Over the next few months, I focused on myself in a way I never had before. I reconnected with old friends, women I'd drifted from because I'd been too busy pretending everything in my life was perfect. I took long walks in the park. I cooked for myself, not to impress anyone, but because I enjoyed it. I even signed up for a pottery class. Something about working with clay, shaping it with my hands, grounding myself in something real. It was healing. Clara, meanwhile, faced the consequences of her choices. The charges stuck. She didn't go to prison, but she did pay heavy fines. Her reputation took a hit, and her pride, well, it shattered. I heard bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances. She'd moved into a small rental across town. She was selling her things. She'd become a ghost of her former self. And Marcus? He tried to help her rebuild. I'm sure he meant well, but you can't build a future when the foundation is still cracked. They were both clinging to something broken. Me? I didn't feel joy in their downfall. I didn't dance on their ashes. I just moved on. Because the real revenge wasn't in destroying them. It was in choosing myself. I wore the watch for the first time on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I'd cleaned the house, lit a candle, and poured a glass of wine. I stood in front of the mirror, slipped the watch onto my wrist, and stared at my reflection. And I smiled. Not because I looked flawless, not because I had everything figured out, but because I had survived. That watch had seen me through hell and back, and here it was, still ticking, still strong, just like me. Sometimes I'd sit by the window at night, the lights of the neighborhood flickering beyond the glass, and I'd think about my father, about how proud he'd be. Not because I fought back, but because I didn't let life turn me bitter. He used to say, "Time doesn't heal everything, Penelope, but it teaches you what to carry and what to let go." And I was finally learning that lesson. I let go of Marcus. I let go of Clara. I let go of the need for approval, for validation, for perfect appearances. I carried the watch, the memories, the strength I'd found in the wreckage. One day, while browsing at a bookstore, I found a journal with gold-embossed words on the cover. "Your story isn't over yet." I bought it, took it home, and I began to write. Not about Clara, not about Marcus, about me. My dreams, my fears, my hopes for the future. And as the pages filled, I realized something I hadn't before. The greatest revenge isn't in watching others fall. It's in rising. In building a life so full, so authentic, so joyful that the people who tried to break you don't even matter anymore. So that's what I did. I built a life, piece by piece, slowly, intentionally. And every morning when I strap that watch around my wrist, I don't think about what I lost. I think about what I found. Myself. The story may have started with betrayal, with heartbreak, with war, but it ended with peace, with power, with Penelope Cruz walking forward, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. Because the clock is still ticking. And my time? It's just beginning.